and welcome to Time to Talk with Nick Thompson. So today I'm going to be talking to Nick Thompson, who's also known as the Holistic Vet, who's based in Wiltshire. And I'm going to talk to Nick about different things, mainly being a holistic vet and what it means. And Nick's renowned for his seminars on things like epilepsy and hypothyroidism, but is really, really well known for his passion on raw feeding. So get yourself a cup of tea, sit back and enjoy watching and listening to Nick Thompson as he shares his passion on all things to do with holistic veterinary medicine and raw feeding. Enjoy. Take care. Bye-bye. So welcome, Nick. It's so good to see you. The last time I saw you was in 2016 in Scotland. You came up and did a seminar on hypothyroidism, and what else was it on? There was hypothyroidism. I think it was epilepsy as well. And
they're very tied. They're very linked. So you can't talk about one without the other. So that's for sure.
Really,
very much so.
It's so close to my heart because I had an epileptic dog for Ziggy. Became epileptic, and he was with us for 2.5 years after.
Okay.
So it's been really close to my heart.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, it was tough. It's a hard thing to live with. But I sent you a list of questions earlier, and there's something that I'm really interested in finding out, because I was a holistic therapist, and that's when I first came across you. You were with, is it Mark Ellis? No.
Mark Elliott. Mark Elliott down in
Chichester.
That's it. Yeah.
And that was through the Holistic Veterinary BHVM, British Holistic Veterinary Medicine.
BAHVS, I think, wasn't it? Or was it the British Holistic Veterinary Medicine Association? That was a long time ago.
Well, that's when I first came across you and Mark, because I had one of my dogs down to see Mark and for homeopathy. And I taught him how to do muscle testing because I was a kinesiologist. And so we then talked about it, and then I joined and then moved to New Zealand in 2003. And so that's how far back I know your name from.
Gosh, you're talking 18 years maybe? 18 or so years ago.
Yeah, it was
the British Holistic Veterinary Medicine Association. That was wow, amazing. Yeah, those are the days.
I know, amazing. And then I come back from New Zealand, went to join, and it had gone.
Yes, it had. It was only up for about 2 years, I think, unfortunately.
So what made you move into holistic medicine rather than traditional veterinary medicine? I'm always curious what turns people away from, you know, this is the norm. And then it makes them swing. Being a complementary therapist myself for years, what pulled you away from it?
I think the major difference between the conventional approach and the holistic approach is the time. We spend a lot of time talking to our clients to really try and understand them, to understand the patient, to understand the whole scenario. And so that was one reason, was that I just found 10-minute, 15-minute consultation was very difficult to do good medicine in that time. So it lends itself to prescriptive medicine, and that's not ideal, I think, if you know that there are other ways of doing it. But what really changed my mind was being in practice as a young vet and giving out antibiotics and steroids and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories and things like that, thinking I never go to the doctor and I would only take these medicines if I absolutely have to. Mm-hmm. And so that mindset made me think, well, you know, that's a bit hypocritical. If you're giving medicines that you would avoid, I wouldn't say that I wouldn't use them at all. I have had an antibiotic in my adult life, but it's kill or cure. type scenario, not just, oh, I've got a sniffle and off we go. So it was that, but also I was raised. My dad was a doctor, my mother was a nurse, and so just was raised in a very kind of medical, and let's use as little drug as possible. My mum was really into homeopathy and nutrition, really into nutrition, and aromatherapy and things like this. And Dad did nutrition and acupuncture and medicine. So it was kind of inevitable, really.
Natural
you know.
step. That's awesome. I've got a sister who used to be a nurse, and she was the first person to introduce me to homeopathy.
Okay.
It's really interesting. You think nurses are very traditional, but actually a lot of them are very into the more complementary side. They're very holistic, aren't they? They're looking at the whole body rather than just a symptom.
I think they are. I mean, we're all trained in the same way. The doctors and nurses and vets and vet nurses, we're all treated in the same way, in pattern recognition, and then here is the standard treatment for that disease pattern. So it's just that when you look at it from a holistic perspective, you say, I was trained with these tools, but I want to use all of these tools instead. And I want to have a much deeper understanding of my patients and my clients, so as to really establish what it is that needs to be treated, So that's really how I come to holistic medicine. It's lovely to really get to know clients and patients. And because if a dog is presented to you with an itch, from a conventional point of view, it's very easy to get rid of that straight away with Cytopoint or with Apoquel or whatever it is. But what I like to do is I like to teach the owner, what are the reasons that the dog might be itchy? What can we do? What are the tests that we can do to maybe find out what's wrong? What simple non-drug treatments can we bring to bear to treat that itchy dog? Or maybe it's a dog with a loose stool. Because I'm doing so much raw food, so many raw food consultations, I'm seeing lots of itchy dogs and lots of dogs with loose bowel problems, IBD and colitis and things like this. And I love treating them. But gut problems is one of my favorite things to treat. Or I see a lot of healthy dogs. People come along and they say, my dog's on a raw food diet. I'd just like you to do an MOT on the dog and an MOT on the food. Fantastic. Off we go. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I really enjoy doing those, because people come along and they're on raw food, and so they're really enthusiastic. They've seen the light and they've seen their dog is better, and they're thinking, well, if I can get my dog looking that much better by just taking a pot shot at a raw food diet, well, let's go and talk to Nick and see if we can go even further. We can go take it to the ultimate extreme. And so that's what we like to do, really push those nutritional boundaries. And we talk about vaccination, optimal, minimal vaccination. And we talk about worming, minimal worming, and minimal flea products, and just leading as healthy a life as possible with as little drug as possible. Yeah, that's the bottom line, really. That's how we really like to approach things.
Yeah, because when I'm a behaviourist now, but I've still got when you're a kinesiologist, you're always a kinesiologist. It's always there, that level of working within the triangle of health, and that's just how you rock. And it is when you start looking at nutrition, environment, behaviour, energy, the whole lot comes together, doesn't it?
It is. Well, that's holism, isn't it? It's like you can't look at the behaviour without looking at the owner. You can't look at the owner without looking at the house. You can't look at the house and the owner without looking at the dog. You can't look at the dog without looking at the health of the dog. You can't look at the health of the dog without looking at the diet of the dog and the chemicals that go onto the dog. So there it is. It's the That's why it's called holism, isn't it? You know?
So, do you know when you're doing like the nutritional consults?
Yeah.
'Cause I had a few like really odd cases years ago with dogs, and I can remember there was this one dog and it had like really, really itchy paws and we couldn't figure it out. And we went through the diet and batch fair remedies, and in the end I was muscle testing and it was formaldehyde, and it was like a really richly carpeted house, and the dog was reacting to the formaldehyde. You know, everything
Wow.
was like really soft furnishings, and so we had to strip the environment back, lift the carpet,
That's amazing.
go back to natural stuff. You know, because it was just, everything was luxurious in the house, and the more luxurious, the more formaldehyde and things like, you know, pig's ears. And so we just stripped everything back, natural diet, natural environment.
Yeah.
Dog stopped chewing its paws. That was amazing.
Wow. That is brilliant. Well done, you.
Thank you. I love stuff like that. It's so cool.
It's a really good story. Yeah, it's good. So you said, I think that might be formaldehyde in the carpets. You're going to have to take up £10,000 worth of carpets. Is that about the size of it?
Pretty much. I did, you know, kinesiology muscle testing on the dog, and we lifted carpets in one room, restricted the dog to that one room, and it was fine. So the whole lot come up.
Okay.
You know, people love it. You know, people like when the dogs will do anything.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
So, yeah.
It probably did them a lot of good as well, because formaldehyde, you don't want to be breathing that in the whole day, do you?
Oh, it's dreadful, isn't it? And it's in everything. You just have to be, not so much now, but you know, 15, 20 years ago, it was in everything. It's shocking.
Yeah. It's what they used to preserve bodies with, isn't it? Formaldehyde.
Yeah, the
embalming fluid. Yeah.
Because they still use it on some of the pig's ears and stuff, don't they? To preserve them, still use them as preservatives, I think.
Oh, nothing, not that I would touch. No,
none
of the good ones. None of the good ones.
None of the good ones. No, the ones that are like orange and sweaty and not great. No.
No, we don't
So
like
is it
those.
primarily raw food consults that you're doing, or do you still do homeopathy and acupuncture?
I'm doing,
the whole thing?
Yeah. Technically, I'm doing homeopathy, acupuncture, nutrition, and herbal medicine. 4 things. Okay, that's why I've got 4 circles is my logo. But what's happening very organically, the world and the dogs are pushing towards diet. That's where I feel I need to put my energy in teaching about raw food, in treating using raw food. And I'm really happy with that. I really enjoy it. Imagine I spend all day long speaking to really lovely people who care enough about the dog to think about changing the diet, to think about treating disease through diet. They've you know, sometimes they've tried everything with their vets and they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do. So they come along and we try diet, and we can sometimes make some really lovely changes with gut and skin cases primarily. Many other things, you know, behavioral problems, all sorts of things can be helped by using a great diet. You know, you are what you eat. That's what the old physicians.
There's so much evidence now as well about the gut being the second brain, and all of the brain cells in the gut, and you know, the whole microbiome and the flora. I mean, we go back years telling people to take probiotics.
Very much so.
And you know.
Yeah, very much so. And there's a thing called the psychobiome now, where they're actually linking very strongly the brain and the gut, the psychobiome. There's a book actually you can get from Amazon called The Psychobiome, which is very interesting.
I'm going to write that down, because I'm really interested in you know, the gut as a second brain, because you know, the whole kinesiology side of it. And I know there's a really good thing on YouTube. I think it's an hour long, and it's the second brain is what it's called. And that's really good. It talks about how they're finding brain cells in the lining of the gut. And you know, it's like ancient people knew this, because they would say, go with your gut instinct, and you know, all of the old sayings all kind of point that the ancients knew it. And as science took over, we kind of forgot all of this wonderful information and pushed it one side with you know, all of this wonky research done by pharmaceuticals pushing us in the wrong direction. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was that called again? I'm going to write it down.
Psychobiome. I can't remember the author. He's from, I think, Bangor University. Psychobiome. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll get that.
Good stuff. Yeah, very interesting stuff.
That's awesome. So what, apart from skin conditions, because I mean, I've spoken to you, epilepsy is something that's really close to my heart.
Okay, yeah.
And I had my dog on a raw diet as well.
Yeah.
I'm an avid raw feeder. And so would raw, I think what I'm trying to say is, if he wasn't on a raw diet, if he was on, say, for example, kibble, would that would have had a detrimental effect on his energy system, so that would have had a detrimental effect potentially on the epilepsy as well?
Possibly. What we can very much say about epilepsy in dogs, because in children, for example, they will put children onto a ketogenic diet to treat refractory epilepsy. Yeah, this is well known and well documented. Yep. You put, and a ketogenic diet is a diet which is where most of the calories are from fat, moderate levels of protein, and very low levels of carbs, which is obviously the opposite of kibble, which is loads of carbs and low levels of protein and fat. Only, you know, adequate levels of protein and fat. So by doing that, you can have some really beneficial effects. It can be very useful to support cancer patients, and also for epilepsy patients. There's a group in Texas, in the States, called the Keto Pet Sanctuary, where they're actively doing this right now. The Keto Pet Sanctuary. If everyone wants to have a look at that, or maybe put a link into the Keto Pet Sanctuary, they're doing some amazing work there. And I do, whenever I see a cancer patient, I will always discuss with them about the ketogenic diet.
God, that's good. My son did the ketogenic diet for a little while. I know.
Yes.
Yeah, he moved to Scotland a few years ago, and he completely changed his lifestyle and went on the ketogenic diet. But he found he lost too much weight, and he was trying to build muscle, build bulk. And he just eats like a really well healthy, balanced diet. You know, really good plate portions. And but he did the ketogenic diet for a while, so I found out quite a bit about it then. Because it's also really good for anti-inflammatory diseases, isn't it? To
very much so. Yeah.
The ketogenic, is it? I can't remember. Peterson. He's a real. He wrote. I can't remember what his name now. It's not Roger Peterson. Jordan Peterson. It might be. He's a real proponent of the ketogenic diet for anti-inflammatory diseases as well.
Okay, right. I think it's just very good. It's very good for most disease processes. It means you're very, very sharp. If you can get the balance right, it's good for good toning of the body. It's anti-cancer. You know, it's a very powerful way to eat, but it takes quite a lot of work to get it right.
Yeah, a lot of work.
For people, for dogs, less so. And if you look on the Keto Pet Sanctuary, they have on that website, they have a kind of a guide as to how you do the diet.
No, that's amazing. I will definitely put a link up. I'll go by editing, so I'll put a link up for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, what other kind of things do you deal with other than skin, runny poos, you know, and epilepsy with the natural diet?
What else do I deal with?
Is it everything? Is it?
I do, yeah, pretty much everything. But mainly, Because what happens is if you have some success with a dog who's had bad gut for years and years, they then tell their friends and their family, and so one or two bad gut cases, they come and see you, and then they tell their friends and their family, and suddenly you're seeing loads and loads and loads of dogs with gut problems, and there are loads of them about. I think I say to many people, okay, what's the average poo score for your dog? If 10 is a perfect torpedo, yeah, it's a poo that you can pick up with 2 fingers. If that's a 10, and if 0 is oxtail soup, what score is your dog? And most people will say, they're eating kibble and they're about 7, and that's fine. That's how they are the whole time. I say to them, you are 30% off the mark.
Yeah.
Because you should be a 10 out of 10, a really great, perfect poo, which indicates good gut function, good microbiome. And if you're producing 7s all the time, it means the diet is 30% wrong. Imagine driving a car that was where the engine was 30% broken. It's a no-go. It's a no-go scenario. So there's a lot of people out there, and I reckon the average dog is about a 7 or an 8, which means that the diet is okay, but it's not absolutely perfect. And you know what, Les? It's so simple to change the diet to a really good raw or fresh diet. Super, super easy and fun and safe and fantastic. So I'm a strong, strong advocate for it, because you've got to feed the dog something. So why not feed it great food to make it better with every mouthful? It's a wonderful thing.
It goes everywhere, doesn't it? So it's like it cuts down on your vet bills, so therefore your insurance is less, you have a better quality of time with your dog's healthy, its farts don't smell, its teeth are lovely and clean, its smell, its coat shiny, poos are easy to pick up. It's like it ripples everywhere, doesn't it?
It's transformative. It's utterly transformative. And I think most people who do it come to me and then a year down the line and go, oh, why didn't I do this 10 years ago, 20 years ago? It's a lot of people are kicking themselves because they didn't look into it way before.
Why are traditional vets so against it? I was speaking with somebody today that phoned me up they wanted me to do a behaviour report, and we started talking about food, and she's feeding cold press, and I says, well, why not raw? And she said, well, my vet says, there's been so many dogs, there's an increase on raw feeding, and there's an increase on seeing dogs with Campylobacter, and it's like, well, really?
I don't.
I
think the vets are scared of it. They don't really know. They're not taught about it at school, and so they don't know. They don't know as much about it as they do about the kibble, because they get a rep from the food company coming in every 3 months telling them about how great the food is. Okay, and it's what they're used to, and they got free food when they were students, and so they're just thick as thieves with the food companies, and that they don't know any difference. The truth of the matter is that there are pros and cons to raw food. There are pros and cons to kibble. And the grown-up conversation is to look at the pros and cons of kibble and the pros and cons of raw and see what suits you best. And as far as I'm concerned, after 28 years in the business, raw food beats kibble hands down.
It does.
Or fresh, if you don't want to feed it raw, just lightly cook it. Take some advice and just get it right. It's very easy. And you lightly cook it, and off you go. I don't think there's a good excuse for feeding kibbled food, even in a COVID crisis.
And people are concerned that it costs more. And we sat down years ago and did a spreadsheet, and we put down like the main kibble manufacturers. We put them all down, listed them all up, and then we did the main raw feeders as well. The main manufacturers, and it came out level pegging. Maybe it's £2 a week more. We couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Not a lot of difference. I think, you know, there are very expensive raw foods. There are very expensive kibbles, and so if you look at all of them, I think that probably is about right. I was lecturing up in Bradford a month or so ago, and one of the girls there was a spreadsheet geek, and she had got feeding her what were they, springers or something, maybe even bigger. They were like maybe even 30 kilos. She'd because she buys in bulk and she's got a freezer and everything else. She could at a push get the price of the food down to 17p per day. Obviously, she wouldn't do that. 17p. She could drop it, you know, using really cheap tripe and then a fast day or something like that. She could. So I think the excuse that it's expensive is not always valid. The best thing to do is to start with the frozen complete raws that you can get from Honeys or from Paleo or from Natural Instinct or Nature's Menu or whoever it is. Get them to do it for the first few months, find your feet, and then you can think about doing it yourself. If you want to take advice from a holistic vet, not even me, I'm not trying to drum up business. I'm just saying, you know, when you learned to drive a car, you had a driving instructor. Just get a food instructor for the first month or so, or if you can find somebody who's been feeding for a long time, then that's the way to start. Start with some instruction is a good idea.
That's perfect. And I'm looking, my eyes keep going down to the clock, and I'm conscious of the time for you tonight. So I think that's a really perfect place to end our chat. Nick, it's been so cool talking to you. And once this is all over and we're out of lockdown, I'll be getting you up to Scotland to do another talk. Cause
I'd love to, Les. I'm so happy to talk about raw food and health and just simple holistic message. You know, we can talk about hypothyroidism. We can talk about all these things. I'd be happy to have a chat with you again in a month or two if you'd like to sit down. Be really, really happy to do that. Really happy. Just
loads of questions. You know, homeopathy, epilepsy, Alabama rot, hypothyroidism. You know, just the whole how you approach all of these things from a natural perspective. You know, no sledgehammers and walnuts. You know. So. Let's
do it again in a month or two. Yeah, be great.
No, that's great, Nick. Thank you, and thank you so much.
Thank you for your support, and anything we can do to help you, I'd be more than happy to do that. Keep well and be safe.
And you take care, Nick. Take care.
Thank you, Les. All the very best to you. Thank you.
Bye.